Thanks for joining us today at Unstuck Your Business podcast.
You went into business with a passion to explore your skills and talents and show the world what you can do to contribute into our society and into our economic ecosystem. But a couple of years into the business and your drive and motivation has dwindled, and now you feel stuck.
When you find yourself at this crossroad of thoughts and emotions, how do you deal with it? In this podcast, we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of entrepreneurship to help you unstuck your business. We are your hosts, Inez Nazario-Vega from Business Essentials Virtual Assistants.
And Edith Duran from Reason Marketing.
Welcome back to Unstuck Your Business. Today's conversation is one every entrepreneur really needs to hear. As business owners, we spend so much time building, creating, and growing that we often don't stop to think about how we're protecting what we worked so hard to create. But what happens when you've done everything you thought you were supposed to do and things still go wrong?
Our guest today is Amanda Sima. Amanda is an entrepreneur, business owner, patented inventor, and host of the podcast Brain on Loan. She has built and scaled multiple companies, including a collegiate apparel business with more than 150 NCAA licenses. After developing and patenting a consumer product, Amanda found herself facing a complex legal battle that completely changed the way she thinks about entrepreneurship, risk, resilience, and founder protection. Today, we're talking about protecting your ideas, navigating unexpected setbacks, and what entrepreneurs can do when they feel stuck in the face of challenges they never saw coming. Amanda, we're so happy to have you with us today. You told us a little bit about your background and the legal battles you've been facing in our, behind the scenes. So I'm excited to bring it all to our audiences. So welcome to Unstuck Your Business. Would you share with our audience a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to meet you both. So I joke all the time. I have a disease. It's called entrepreneurism. I can't stop starting businesses. I think my husband would agree. I'm married 19 years today. Love you, Neil.
Oh, happy anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I have 3 beautiful daughters and originally from Ohio, live now in Denver, Colorado. And started my entrepreneurial journey not long out of college and have just been starting and growing businesses ever since. It's a real passion of mine.
That's incredible. You're so perfect for our podcast.
Perfect. Yeah, it sounds like I'm in good company.
Yes, because, on this show, we like our title, Unstuck Your Business. There's so many things that might keep you stuck within your business, your entrepreneurship journey. But what you are talking about today is something that I think isn't talked about enough, but, let's get to your background. What first drew you into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so I love the title of the podcast, and I'm going to kind of play on words with it. I went into business for myself because I wanted to sort of unstuck my life. And I wanted a path to financial freedom, which allowed me to spend time with my family and not have to, say goodbye to my kids every day and I've got to, have to go off to work and they can't spend time with me. It was like I kind of had that vision for my life at a very young age. I think it was, I had 2 working parents who were gone a lot. And I used to get bummed out when they left. And I was just like, I don't want that life when I'm older. I remember around 10 years old thinking, I want to do something different. And I graduated from Ohio State University in 2005 with an absolutely worthless history degree. I majored in history because I thought I was going to go to law school and always been passionate ironically, about the law. Find it very interesting. But I took one pre-law class and I thought, no, this is not for me. I'm not this disciplined by the book. And so I had a history professor who I became friends with. And she's like, what are you going to do after this? I'm like, great question, because I was just trying to figure out what I'm going to do with this degree. And she's like, well, what are you into? And I'm like, well, I'm kind of into politics. You know, I follow politics. And at the time, there was a gubernatorial race in Ohio, statewide, with a hotly contested primary. And she knew a campaign manager, and she, gave me his name and his number. And I called and I was like, hey, I want to volunteer. And they hired me on the spot and threw me into fundraising. So I had no experience at all, but threw me into fundraising. And throughout the state of Ohio, as I'm coordinating events, I'm meeting the most amazing self-made entrepreneurs. And I think it was the first time that really manifested in my brain that you really could make a living working for yourself. And by the way, these are walks of all life. They're not all multimillionaires, but they're like a leader in their community, and they have a healthy $1 or $2 million business, and they're just, they work for themselves. And so I was like really inspired by that. After my first campaign, I sort of started my own like little consulting gig, just fundraising and taking on multiple clients. So that was probably technically my first business. But as with many businesses, we try to do, like, the inspiration is maybe a couple things. It's like I'm inspired by something, or I'm looking to solve a problem. And with my first business, I was definitely inspired by something. So I was like fundraising, working for myself. That was awesome, but really thought, okay, I want to sort of delve into, business world a little bit more. So I started thinking of ideas. And so one day, my grandmother gave me a vintage Ohio State sweater. It was like from the 80s. And I was like, whoa, this is really cool. I'm going to wear this because I like to look different than everyone else, like out at game day. And then I'm looking around and I'm like, everyone's in tees and sweatshirts. And I thought it would be really cool to like remake these, or make a line that's sort of inspired by this vintage garment, and bring fashion to NCAA apparel. And then, like, all of it, good entrepreneurs do. I started studying the market, and I thought, well, everyone's always buying every single year. They're buying for gifts, they're buying for their team, they're buying for their kids, they're buying for their family. Like, the demand was never dwindling, and very large market. I thought, if I can get a lot of licenses, the business gets pretty big pretty quickly. And that to me said, okay, then it'll be easier to maybe raise capital, because I knew at some point I would need investors. And of course, near and dear to my heart was the Ohio State University license, not only because I went there, but it was going to be central to the growth of my business. It's a massive market, and obviously a highly reputable school in the NCAA, and an amazing fan base. And I knew that if I got that license, other licenses would follow. And that's exactly what happened. And just from there, we brought our line to market, and the licensing portfolio really started to snowball.
Wow. That took a lot of patience.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really highly complex business. I say all the time, if you go to, pick out a garment for your favorite team, there's so much process that goes into it, just beyond even making it, because there's the compliance side with the university. And, you don't really just come to market with one product. I mean, you have to come with a line. And I was up against Nike. I was up against I'm up against the largest apparel companies in the world. And I knew I had to have something different to get that license. And sure enough, I did.
So you had that competitive advantage, just the big fish.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you said, I have an idea for an Ohio State t-shirt, they would like laugh you out the door. They're like, we have enough t-shirt licensees. You know what I mean? Like, bring us something different.
Yes.
And that's what we were able to do. Yeah.
Well, Amanda, I do find fascinating your story. I know behind the scenes, before we got into this recording, we talked quite a bit. And And wrapping it back to what our topic is today, which is how do you protect what you build? And I think we both agree that we have so many ideas, and sometimes inadvertently we share those ideas, and somebody else may run with it when you're already in the process of working it. So, what do most entrepreneurs misunderstand about protecting their ideas?
Oh, there's so many answers to that question. I mean, I was just on I made an appearance yesterday, and I said, I got kind of got a similar question, and like, what do you maybe not want to disclose, or maybe what would you ask someone who would like run with your idea to make them not run with your idea, something like that. And I said, there's if they're a bad actor, they're a bad actor. And there is nothing you can do to stop a bad actor from doing what they're going to do. There's nothing you can say, there's nothing you can ask. All you can do, I would say, is manage access to yourself and to your concept, your business, your creation. I was on another podcast where his listeners wanted to know how to build a moat of protection around their invention. And I ran with that analogy because a moat is meant to protect the castle. And that castle is your creation. And, we went through sort of the walls are important. Walls, NDAs, patents, these are not bulletproof. They can be penetrated. It's an important part, though, of the castle. But beyond the walls, there's a bridge. You can raise it and lower it. You can allow who has access to you, your business, your concept, your creation. And I think it's really important as you're developing and as you're creating, to really carefully manage who has access to you. And sometimes we're going to come across bad actors, and we're going to disclose something that we shouldn't, or disclose something too early. But there are other protections in place, or you can put in place to mitigate that. And so if you're, I said, my main piece of advice when we're talking about access to you is, I know with all of my businesses, I started very, very local. My best friend was a graphic designer, and she did the sketches for my apparel line. Okay. My very first investors were friends and family. These are people that are like aligned with me. They're local. They're in my community. With my second creation, my engineer was a guy 20 minutes down the road from me. So if he violated his NDA or tried to run with my idea, I could drive down there and punch him in the nose. I could look him in the eye. So I think that, entrepreneurs and creators start thinking that they need to build a team around them, and you do, but try to keep it as local as possible. In my experience, these are people that are not willing to violate agreements that you have in place. Mm-hmm. And then if we're just talking about nuts and bolts, like obviously as you're talking to people, they have to sign an NDA, right? Mm-hmm. That way, if something does happen, you have a legal path. And by the way, that doesn't, when I say legal path, don't get scared. Like it's going to be a full-blown lawsuit. Mm-hmm. If you have an NDA in place and someone violates it, it could just be, a cease and desist or a scary legal letter that will make them back off. Mm-hmm. Not everyone wants to get into an expensive legal battle with you, especially mm-hmm. not smaller creators.
Yes. Something you said in which took me back to a couple of episodes that we have recorded here in this very same podcast. We had this gentleman, I can't remember the name, Edith, perhaps you can remind me, about information risk management.
Oh, David Soto.
Yes, yeah. David Soto, thank you. And he brought something very interesting that kind of aligns and correlates to what you're saying, that documenting things so that you prevent the release mm-hmm. of information mm-hmm. is very important. And I think that what you were saying about, somebody just, you have to be very careful and very cautious on who you bring into your team. Mm-hmm. to work your idea and to work your project. And then we also have another repetitive guest. We bring him from time to time, Justin Munizzi, and he's our legal advisor, basically, in our show, and where he also have uh, advice to us about what are things, not everything is bulletproof, but what are the protections you can put around your business for these kind of situations. And I don't think we take to heart this NDA, for example. You talked about the NDAs. We just start the business, we start bringing people in, and we're going to make it because I have this great team. But because we're a little bit too loosey-loose with a business, we forget that there's this thing called NDA that protects the business.
Right. Well, I think
And you
it's the
sometimes you don't
excitement.
even want to do it with your friends and family, but I think you have to do it with everyone. Would you say?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely would say a couple things. Yes. I mean, NDAs should always be in place in the early stages of your business. When you start to, when you get to a phase in your business where you have to expose your product, and like, for example, in my situation, that was like, okay, I had my prototype, had an investor, we were ready to hit market, and we knew we wanted it to be in a lot of doors. So I had to hire sales reps, like a team of sales reps. Well, it's just not like, you do get to a point where you're not going to be able to execute like 30 NDAs just to like have a conversation. It's just not standard in the industry, but understood that, what you're sending or what you're discussing is proprietary. But I think there are, like, in my email signature is like a giant paragraph long. It's a giant legal disclaimer. Anything I'm sending you in this email is proprietary, it's private, it's confidential. I don't care if I'm scheduling a hair appointment. Like, so as you're starting to maybe reach out to people, hey, I'm interested in you, bringing you on as a sales rep, but obviously you have no executed NDA because it's the initial point of contact. Like, it's something that simple. So if, you turn around and you've sent them something and they've run with it, they're violating, you have that protection in place, if that makes sense.
That's interesting because, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, it's interesting what you're saying, because I noticed that when you like get emails from government agencies, they always have this long-winded disclaimer at the bottom.
Right.
And why do we think that we should do it be any different?
Yeah, absolutely. And the beautiful thing is, as I'm going on podcasts with people like you, we are all like-minded. We're a community of good actors. And so I'm sure you would tell your listeners, and I tell my listeners, like, you have access to me if you need assistance in any way, and I'm not going to, I'm a victim of this. I'm here to help you. I'm not going to run with your ideas. If you need help with sourcing, if you need help with, I don't know, like the sales rep process, the patent process, if you're going through something legal, I think we do have a community of entrepreneurs, like good actors, good entrepreneurs who are here to help each other. And so I would definitely say, once you get to a point where you're, having to expose your product, look towards us. Look towards us, who are your advocates.
That's a great point,
I totally agree
Amanda. Because, it sounds like your first entrepreneurial journey with the vintage line went pretty successfully, so you get the bug per se to, I want to do this again. It's such a rush. And then, in that process, eventually you come to a point where it didn't go as planned. And I guess I'd like for you to expand a little bit on that. Like, this was the real obstacle that you faced, and you were doing everything right. Just like you had before, you were doing everything right, and something outside of your control went horribly wrong. If you wouldn't mind expanding on that just a little bit. I know you're still in a legal battle, so we don't have to get specific, but more than anything, I'd love to share with our audience, what got you through that to keep persisting, keep moving forward? Like, what was the mindset? What was the support that you received? If you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, so I actually did experience corporate piracy with my first business.
Oh, you did?
Um, yeah, in a very almost identical way that I did with my second business. I think the only difference is I had one company who admitted to it and backed off, and the company now that I'm fighting in court is denying it. And so, yeah, I mean, I'll just speak to like what's out there public. My case is public. Anyone can look up the complaints or read the news articles. But, basically I'm alleging that after I met with a sales rep, a multi-billion-dollar corporation that he represented came out with a copycat product within 3 months.
Feeling overwhelmed by your to-do list? Emails, scheduling meetings, managing customer inquiries, social media. The list never ends. But guess what? You don't have to do it all. Let a virtual assistant from Business Essentials Virtual Assistant help you say goodbye to the mundane task of running your business and reclaim your passion over essentials. From administrative tasks, customer support, social media, marketing, and more, we've got you covered. It's like having an extra pair of hands without the overhead. Ready to work smarter, not harder? Visit us today at businessessentialsva.biz. Again, businessessentialsva.biz, and get the help you need today.
By the way, the product, you want me to go into the product, your listeners are probably like, what's the product? I designed a spill-proof disposable lid for children. At the time, nothing existed like it, and I had a 2-year-old. I was tired of her like spilling her drink at dinner, and I just looked at this cup, and I'm like, this is designed for adults, and there's so many cups and lids designed for adults, but not for children. And so it sounds really common sense. I thought surely it already exists, and I did research, and nothing like it did exist. And so I designed a spill-proof lid that has a sip spout for younger kids. It has a straw slot if older kids want to use it. Most important part of the invention is that when it's, attached to the cup and it's knocked over, the lid doesn't pop off, it doesn't spill. So a spill-proof lid for kids. I truly, truly thought this was my billion-dollar idea because it was globally unique and the volume is in the billions annually, right? So I was like, and still am, like so proud of this creation. Honestly, I think it's why I brought on an investor pretty easily. The first investor I pitched, I landed. And it was just such a specific design. This is what's important, I think, to my case, that like, it's not like, in no universe would a corporation that big coincidentally have the exact same features as my lid, right? And meanwhile, I gave my product to a person who worked for them. And so after I discovered the copycat product in market, I lost my investor. I was out of business overnight.
Oh, wow.
My first company, when I went to the corporation and told them what happened, they were like, oh, sorry. The CEO's like, I'm sorry, I didn't know my staff did that. Like, we'll knock it off. Well, this one, they put the product in market. They're still selling it today. And I think the bummer was like, because at first I was like actually flattered. This is a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Like, I must have created something pretty cool if they copied it right away. But then when I started to figure out probably the chain of events, and on top of that, I started seeking, I went right to my patent attorney because we had a design patent, and she's like, well, they designed it like a little bit differently enough, so you have no lawsuit you can pursue. And I'm like, what? I'm just out of business overnight? Like this, because my investor's like, he doesn't want to compete against a $6 billion. That's not what he signed up for. So I was devastated, and kind of just sat on that bad legal advice for like 2 years. And then I started doing research again, like 2 years later. I was like, oh, I wonder if they still have my product in market. And I was like getting angry one day. And so I checked the patent office and saw that they had gotten a utility patent. For your listeners who don't know much about patents, design patents protect how your product looks, not really a strong protection. A utility patent protects how it functions. So even if I had said, okay, I'm going to compete with them anyway because my product is better, now I'm legally precluded from doing that because our products function the same way. And they went and got a utility patent and I did not. Mm-hmm. And that to me was like the ultimate betrayal, the ultimate theft. Wow. Of taking my creation in my mind. And so that lit a fire under me to pursue a lawsuit. And I started talking to attorneys again, and thank God, like just through persistence, I finally had attorneys who were like, you don't have a patent case, but you have like a trade secret case. You have a breach of contract case. I'm like, I don't even know what any of this is. Mm-hmm. And so, through the chain of events of what happened, and because it's just there's too much funny business there. Like I had a couple of attorneys who were like, yeah, you definitely have claims. And so I am in litigation against the corporation. I did have some bad actors with my attorneys too, unfortunately. The story is it gets just sensationally bad. I did hire 2 attorneys. The main partner on my case, a man out of Chicago, the entire time he was representing me, he was negotiating a job with the corporation's law firm and didn't tell me that. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, we're disagreeing a lot on the basics of my case. And there was more than one time that he told me to drop my claims. And so I'm in litigation against him. I'm in litigation against the corporation and all the law firms. And I feel like, my product was stolen and then my case was stolen against the corporation. Mm-hmm. And it's like, how greedy do we all need to get? Oh, because I wanted to sell a lid? Like, it's insane. And so I tell this story not to scare any of your listeners out of creating, but to start a conversation and to, I would say, accentuate the conversation, grow the conversation around corporate piracy. In the United States, we have antitrust laws, and that precludes giant corporations, right, from partnering, acquiring, merging, because if they get too big, then the consumers are not protected. Mm. Now, but I think there's a form of antitrust we need to address that's behind the scenes. And it's cases like mine where a corporation just takes something that they like, whether legally or not. In my mind, it's unethical across the board, and pass it off as their own to add to their bottom line. And they're bad corporate actors. And it's just not necessary behavior. If you want something, you buy it. You don't just take it. And I think there's for every one of me who fights, there's thousands who just go away. And so I'm passionate during this time about, not only entrepreneurial advocacy, but talking about the realities of this conduct, how it affects us as creators, how it affects the ecosystem. How many people out there want to start a business and are too scared? That's not right. That's not the American dream. And that is not free market to me. So I'm just here to change the behavior, change the conduct so that creators and small business owners can feel comfortable in, pursuing their path to financial freedom and growing something meaningful for them and for their families.
Yes. Amanda, I'm so sorry that this is all happening to you at this moment. But at the same time, like you said, you have hit the nail in the head when it comes to everything that's going on around what I would call what you call corporate piracy and antitrust laws, which very many of us, little, small, medium-sized businesses, we're not even aware of what to do when that happens. Right. And yet there's so many big sharks out there looking to what they can grab from the little fishes.
It's
for
part
lack
of
of a
their
little better.
business model. It's part of their
It
business
is,
model.
it is, it
It's
is, it is.
gross.
And I hate to put it out there, but that's why we have the Amazons of the world, the Walmarts of the world, and what have you. Not that they're bad. I'm not saying, let me make a disclaimer. It's not that I'm saying that they are doing that all the time, but that's how it happens. That's how they get big. They are the ones that eat from the little ones, and that's how they get big. And there's like we were just saying this before we started this conversation. There is so much market for everybody to have a good life with it. For
Right.
every entrepreneur to have something and make a decent living and have something for their families and their communities. I really don't and I really don't understand this concept of not collaborating and always competing.
That's,
And
yeah, very well
I
said.
don't understand the concept of how can we not coexist if it's going to benefit everybody.
Right. I mean, someone's always going to have a better idea than someone else,
Absolutely.
And it could be like me, a small guy against a sleepy corporation who's gotten lazy. They've gotten lazy in development, and now instead of developing internally, they send people out to take from people like me. That's part of their business
Yeah,
model.
to scout what they can grab and they can steal.
Yeah, and by the way, the legal system and the patent system benefits them. Not there's a problem with the legal and the patent system if you have companies that just take a chance on they just straight infringe because they're playing a betting game that you don't have the money to litigate it, and they're always winning that game because most people don't have $2 to $5 million to litigate a patent case, right? It's so wrong. It's so wrong. We've got to change the behavior. I mean, especially, some of these companies are private equity backed or even public backed, and if consumers knew the behavior, they probably wouldn't purchase from them, right? So
Yes.
these are the
Yes,
conversations we need to be having.
yes. And you hit the nail in the head when you said it's just killing the economic ecosystem. Why?
Yes.
Because more and more creators are going to be very hesitant to create.
Exactly.
And if they do, they're probably not going to go to market the way that we would have want them to go into market.
Right.
And
Yeah.
because there are things that we need that many small creators do invent, and they do have means to do it and make our life easier. But granted, with the way that things are nowadays, that's exactly what's happening. A lot of creators are just going into hiding, and then the rest of us don't benefit from what they can create.
Yeah, well, let's talk about this. We talk about how we need more domestic manufacturing here. We need more factories here. It creates jobs. It lessens our dependency overseas. Well, it's harder than ever. I could have ran with my product and started a plastics business that maybe specialized in, like, I don't know, certain niches that aren't being addressed. It's harder than ever. I would say it's impossible these days because of this conduct to build a company from a concept, a company where you have employees, where you have facilities. I'm stopped in my tracks, right? Because I had one great business idea. And instead it's padding a multi-billion-dollar corporation who's already this big.
And it's contracting the market.
I mean, imagine if we were safe enough to create and then build that into a company, and I could have built that into a manufacturing facility that created jobs, and we had suddenly an ecosystem, a community that could easily happen. It could happen in my mind. It could happen overnight, but instead, I'm in court for 3 years. It's just so backwards. It's so backwards. We gotta we're too sophisticated as a society at this point to be engaging in this conduct.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you, and I think that this topic is so relevant, especially for Unstuck Your Business, because there are so many amazing, talented entrepreneurs out there.
Yes.
That get stepped on because of what you have been just experiencing. The big corporations that stepped on the small and medium-sized businesses. And I think if anything, a call to action for anybody out there that is listening is that if you are going through something like that, perhaps contact Amanda, contact us, and I don't know that we can create a big movement, but at least start somewhere to
Right.
start protecting
Have
these
a
businesses.
voice. Yes.
Have a voice for these businesses and for these creators, because I think I'm to the point, I'm going to be very blunt and honest. Enough is enough with the big corporations.
I agree.
Enough is enough. They are just killing the complete ecosystem for us to exist as a community.
Right. Yeah.
And
completely agree.
And the ball needs to stop somewhere.
It puts small business owners and creators in a really uncomfortable position because we are free market too. But free market doesn't mean Wild West. Laws exist for a reason. And, you know, it's there have to be more protections in place. But there also just has to be just sort of, I would say, a universal attitude and love for each other and for, you know, what I think what bonds small business owners and the largest corporations alike is our love for creating. You know, I'm sure Jeff Bezos would say, you know, the most gratifying experience of his life was growing a business from an idea he had in his head. And the fact that some people are afforded that and others aren't because of situations like this is like, it's so beyond wrong, you know?
Yeah, I think that's
really makes you bitter. Yeah.
Many of these big billionaires, they forget where they came from.
1000%. Exactly.
They forget where they came, because Jeff came from what? Selling books. That was his first business.
Yes.
I remember those books because I used to get them too. That was, you know, that's how he started. And then they along the line, the greed and the money and whatever it is that it takes to change their behavior and their understanding of small businesses, it's like a switch goes off in their brain and they forget that there's others behind them that should have the same opportunity, if not more, because you need to fit into the next generation for the better.
Right.
Better. Exactly. But anyways, Amanda, just for the sake of time, I know we went a little bit over our 30 minutes, but this is such an amazing conversation and an amazing topic, I should say. What would you say are 3 things that small businesses can do to protect themselves? Like 3 basic things that they can do.
Okay, so going back to my castle analogy and the walls, like NDAs and patents are important. I got bad legal advice in the beginning. My patent attorney advised me against filing for a utility patent because it was her opinion that I would never get it. And it's expensive and it's a long process. And that ended up being my biggest Achilles heel. So I would say if you have anything that's really sort of novel in the way that it functions, go for the utility patent. It's and if you're like, well, I can't afford a utility patent right now, but I want to start generating revenue, you can always file that provisional patent, which is much cheaper, and it gives you 12 months to have your product out in market, maybe generate some revenue, and you're sort of first in line. You're like priority. So if any sort of corporate pirates come after it or copycats, as long as you file the full patent within 12 months, you're guaranteed like you own it. And gives you a little bit of wiggle room to start generating revenue and exposing your product. And, you know, honestly, the same goes if you're a writer, an artist, you know, trademark, copyright, definitely, even if they're not bulletproof, and you may still have corporations that like knock you off. These are the basics, the filing of the patents, the filing of the copyrights, definitely NDAs in place. And if you're ever sending anything unsolicited, you know, I like this factory, want to see if they can, you know, help me with my product. Just make sure you have sort of that disclaimer in your email signature, just to protect yourself. As I mentioned before, really be mindful of who you're giving access to. you will get to a point where you're going to have to expose yourself a little bit. But like I said, I kept it as local as possible and was, successful in that, at least with my first business. And then, with those protections in place, as I mentioned, filing a provisional patent, it gives you 12 months with a little bit of protection to expose yourself. Get out there and sell and start building your brand equity. Honestly, if you have something, until we change this conversation, which could take years, if you have something really novel, really cool, it's inevitable that it will be copied. Mm-hmm. But if you have brand equity and you have customers and you have a following, and brand equity meaning your marketing is novel, your story is novel, on top of the fact that you have a really cool product, I think that's the greatest protection. That is the moat, right? Of protecting your product in sort of the wild west of the free market. I'll give you an example. Like with my lid, a big part of my marketing was invented by a mom. Oh, and a corporation can't take that, right? Right. Mm-hmm. And so try to think of things like that, because especially with technology, social media, TikTok, Instagram, more than ever, the purchasing masses, which are younger and younger now, are they purchase with their values, and they purchase with how they feel about any given topic. And so I think you have to be really mindful of your marketing and building your brand equity and building that trust with consumers, so that when someone does try to come in and knock you off, you're known as, the genuine, authentic product. That takes time. That doesn't happen overnight. There are little protections you can have in place that we just discussed while you're out there selling. And I've said this too, especially with my apparel line. Like, I started really local. All my customers were local. And that gave me sort of the sales history to go, because that's my community. They want to support me. They like the product. And then I can take that sales history to a larger customer that can put me in a massive amount of doors. And then suddenly it's harder to catch up with you, right? Mm-hmm. So also keep your sales local, because I find it's the lowest hanging fruit, but also critical to getting you into a ton of doors. And that's a great protection as well. Just that momentum.
That's good. That's good. Well, thank you so much, Amanda, for sharing your story and for giving us so much valuable information to take with us and to protect our ecosystem of small businesses. So thank you so much for being with us.
Yes, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
And so our audience can connect with you. Can you tell us, how can they find you?
Oh, yeah. brainonloan.com. It's just like it sounds. It's my brain on loan. I'm sure Edith and Inez would agree. Contact us if you have a struggle or, or just like a basic question in any part of your process of your business. And yeah, I've worn all the hats. I've endured all the pain. So my brain is free to you. If you have anything you're struggling with or you need advice, submit a question, and I get back to everyone that submits.
I love that.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Amanda, thank you so much for being our guest today. Great conversation.
Thank you.
If you're hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode, and for that, we want to thank you. Let us know what you think about today's topic by leaving us a comment and a review of our podcast.
And if you found some value on the information shared in this podcast, please subscribe and share. And you can find us on our Facebook page, Unstuck Your Business, and join the conversation and engage with other entrepreneurs as together we help each other unstuck our business. Until next time.
Until next time.